Let us bring our panel up. We have some newcomers, some who've been here before, and some old war horses who can go around the track a few more times before they're finished. The first, you don't know which one I'm talking about. You're all making assumptions here, if I may say. Shall we start with the new or the old? I'm very delighted to welcome Vanessa Hudson, who joins us from Qantas. Welcome on board. Take a seat. There's another newbie, and it is Shai Weiss of Virgin. I'm never sure it's Weiss or Weiss, but he'll put me right one way or the other. You're another newbie. Welcome on board. Somebody who has been here before and certainly knows the rules of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Kirby of United. Sure. Welcome on board. You're there. And the Knight of the Realm. We're all waiting for an announcement from him, but we thought it might happen. Anyway, joining us today, Sir Tim Clark. You all right? Did you sit your hand? Careful. Right, we start. Look. The issues facing this industry have been well and truly debated, argued. We've made little progress, seemingly, on many of them. Starting with yourself, Vanessa, you're the new kid on the block in a sense of this. Since last year, I mean, you've really had your hands full turning around Qantas. Tell me about it.
So you might say that I'm a newbie, but I'm not really. So I've been in Qantas for 30 years. And as you say, coming out of COVID was pretty hard for us. It took way too long. We let customers down multiple times. And when I was stepping into this role, one of the first things I did was actually to spend more time listening, less time talking. And
how did it happen? I mean, I think the toughest question that I can ask on this is, A, how did it happen, and B, you were there when it was happening.
Well, there's a lot of things that drove it. I think number one, when we looked and came out of COVID, we were really ambitious. Australia was one of the most locked down countries in the world. Our international borders were locked down. We actually had every state locked down to each other. And the impact that actually had on our operation was significant. And when we were coming out of COVID, we had ambition to get back flying as quickly as we could. But when we started that process, COVID was starting to run through a population that really hadn't been exposed, so sickness levels went up. There were resourcing issues. There's been really well-documented supply chain issues. And also, there was really shortage of resources. And what ultimately happened was that impacted our ability to recover really quickly. Our on-time performance was bad. Our cancellations were bad. We had missed baggage issues, our contact centre delays. And when you actually do that for too long, you impact customers consistently. They have a bad experience, they've got long memories, and that accumulated over a period of time.
And the ability to turn that round.
So like I said, the most important thing is to actually focus on what matters most to your customers, but also what matters most to your people. And we identified that there were four main pain points that we needed to address, and we needed to address it really quickly. The first one, you would all know this, getting your on-time performance right is absolutely the single most important part of not just a low-cost carrier, and we have that with Jetstar, but also premium carrier. So we did that. We invested hundreds of millions of dollars into fixing these pain points. So on-time performance, cancellations. We also improved the quality of the in-flight service experience for customers. We're investing in that. We also made a conscious decision that we know that things are not going to go to plan. But when things don't go to plan, our focus now is to recover better than we did in the past. And then the final one was actually investing in loyalty. We know that customers spent a lot of money on their credit cards during COVID. They accumulated a lot of points. And we've just recently relaunched a major part of our loyalty program that enables our frequent flyers to fly where they want, when they want, in the class that they want.
I can feel the rest of the panel in sympathy, recognizing individually different aspects of what you're talking about. There but for the grace of God go I. Would you agree?
Totally, absolutely. What do you want me to focus on?
You choose.
Where should I go? Look, for us, the journey of the last few years has been interesting. Recovery from COVID was, I would say, more complicated in the United Kingdom, especially given the fact that we specifically did not get any support from our government.
I wondered how long you were going to take before you gave it. Go on.
But where we are today is actually 40 years of Virgin Atlantic. June 22nd, 1984 was the first flight. And I would say the thing that sets us apart from day one to today is the red thread that we pull forward our people. So
but you're part of Delta now.
49% of yes. Yes, and 51% owned by Richard Branson, and we are proud partners with Delta with a joint venture across the Atlantic. 1 in 3 passengers across the Atlantic will fly on Virgin Atlantic, Delta, or Air France KLM.
Which you're now part of SkyTeam as well.
Indeed, we joined last year after many years of being a Virgin. We decided that it was time for us to join an alliance, and the alliance of choice, of course, was SkyTeam, given the fact that our partners...
It wasn't an alliance of choice. It was an alliance of necessity.
Or convenience.
Which is worse.
You tell me.
But, okay, so you've joined.
Yes.
And how's it going?
It's actually going well. Today we announced three new co-chair partnerships, actually 2 with the alliance, with Saudia and SAS, which is interesting. But on the same announcement, like in true Virgin Atlantic style, we also announced that we're returning to Tel Aviv on September the 5th, and we are joining in partnership with El Al. So we put SAS as the Scandinavians in the middle, and we have...
Yeah, well, that's just because they've, ditched Star and moved over because Anko decided he wanted to change partners.
Look, that happens in aviation very seldom. I think it's the first time that somebody moves over from Star to another alliance. But like I said, today was a big day for us with the 3 announces.
Scott, I mean, you're just going to let that go?
Well, sometimes people like Coach better.
The difficulties now, when you return to, I'm going through each of you and your various difficulties. You've had a tough year so far, a tough year on a serious matter in terms of the safety question. But I was impressed with the way in which you basically took these various unrelated incidents or matters and decided to nose head on.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as a tough year at all. In fact, there have been plenty of challenges. We've all faced them coming out of COVID, but our view has been literally from day one that every challenge is not just an opportunity to solve the challenge. It creates an opportunity to do something different than everyone else does and make your airline, your company better on the other side. We did that at the very beginning of COVID. We've done it in all kinds of, and this was, a case of we do have, I believed, and I even more confident now, extremely strong safety foundation at United, but we had several events happen. And we could have been defensive about that, but instead...
When they happened, and I'll take our share of the blame, I was, the media suddenly focused on every minor incident that would happen in the normal course of events. So I'll accept that part. But when they were happening, did you have a moment when you thought, hang on, I've really got to work out, is there something going on here?
I didn't think there was, but I thought it warranted looking at it and seeing if there was. But that's normal course. That always happens. But the real point of it was, how do we, our goal, we are now the biggest airline in the world. Our goal is to be the best airline in the history of aviation. We're going to be the best. That includes, we all think safety is number one. Every single person in this room, I know, thinks safety is number one. But how do you take it even to the way we get better is take it to the next level? And how do we do that? That's our mission became, how do we do that? And it's been really inspirational with employees, which was the goal. I go around and talk to our employees, and they tell me, here's the things that here's our idea how we're going to restripe this. Here's how we're going to do this different than we've done before to make safety better.
Tim, you've been around a while.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
I'm fine. Do I look as though I'm going to sleep?
The industry is, we were talking earlier about the amount of money now being made, and you're making money, you're all making money, but you're not making a lot of money just yet. And arguably, these are the good days.
Well, I speak for Emirates. We've just, I think, cleared 5 billion net in the last financial year. The group was 5.1 billion net. The airline was about 4.7. So in terms of margins, we were pushing over 12% in our net margin. So actually, and this is a continuum of what we did last year, the first year post-COVID. And going forward, we also see that going on as far as we're concerned. Mm-hmm. That's the way we intend to continue doing that. So you know, the way we've reshaped our business, the way the operating model has showed an amazing amount of resilience as a result of what happened in COVID, and the fact that the team of people got the airline to where it is today and where it needs to be in the future, gives us every confidence that the days of, now I'm not speaking for the whole industry, of low margins doesn't have to be the case. We can be as good as any other industry. And with the kind of margins that we see in our supply chain into us, and I've seen this for many, many years, so many people making...
What sort of numbers? When it says, the average is what, 3-point margins, 3.1?
Well, I see no reason why the airline community shouldn't be up in the 6, 7, 8, 9% margins. I think that is something we can achieve. And you know, with the skill sets that we got at the top of the businesses now and the focus on these things, apart from as Scott says, it's safety, that's a given. I see no reason why the airline industry should not reshape itself, rethink itself into an industry that is as good as the best in the business in other industries. I just don't see why that should be why we should continue to be plagued with low margins, balance sheets.
Because you always have been.
I know, but what I'm saying is, interestingly enough, the industry post-COVID has always demonstrated enormous resilience. And it's shaped itself, as Scott said. You know, they got going as quickly as possible, right? There were bumps in the road, but actually he got his business back to where it was, and I'm sure Vanessa will do the same with Qantas. And I think you're seeing the beginnings now of a new era for the airline community, and I hope it lasts. There's nothing for certain, but actually people are starting to produce some really good results, and we should watch that carefully and learn from it.
I think the industry is resorting into, this is true around the world, certainly true in the United States, airlines that are focused on customers and everyone else. And if you're focused on customers, you're going to succeed, you're going to have good margins. And if that's not your top focus, you're going to have a hard time competing with airlines that are. And Sir Tim was one of the leaders in that the last 30, 40 years in proving that works.
But the margins, what will your margins be?
Our margin last year was 8%. So we're essentially back to where we were pre-COVID with all the challenges that existed in global and U.S. aviation last year.
Yeah, look, I mean, I agree with Sir Tim and also Scott. You've got to focus on the customer. We have both low cost and also premium airlines, and if customers are not getting value for money, that's where trouble sets in. So that's got to be first and foremost. You've also got to focus on your people, because customers to us say the reason why they fly Qantas is because of the service and the experience that they get when they're on board. And we should be proud. We are proud of being as profitable as we've ever been in our history. That is driven by a number of things. One, it's driven by delivering to customers, but two, it's continually to challenge ourselves to find ways of driving efficiency, driving productivity. We did an enormous amount of work during COVID to drive efficiency across our business, but it's also about looking forward to the next phase that we're in now with the new technology that's coming, new aircraft with new capability. We are able to fly routes that we can't fly today. We are able to do that more efficiently with less fuel, but also that's going to drive better emission outcomes. And sustainability is the next big challenge for aviation. And I think being fit for that and having an efficient business is really important.
Now, there's a lot in that. Let's just let's talk about, first of all, the supply chain issues that are happening at the moment. In some shape or form, they're affecting all of you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And they're affecting your growth.
To some degree. You know, we're in a... The real thing that is affecting our growth is the position at Heathrow. You know, this slot-constrained airport.
Oh, we'll get to Heathrow in a minute.
Just as I got started. Willie's looking at me. He's expecting me to give a line on Heathrow.
Willie has famously said to me, we will both retire and be dead before you get a third runway.
That's not a problem.
But forget that Heathrow for a minute.
Yes.
There are other bigger airports being built.
Yes.
Hold on, please. I want to talk about deliveries of the constraint that now is hitting you. How is it hitting you?
Yes, and I was going to say, you know, we're in a relatively fortunate position that our stream of planes is relatively secure. We have 17 787s. Those have been delivered over a decade ago, and our growth now is on A339s and A350s. There has been a bit of slippage, but overall, we're very much secure in the positions we have.
You're really being hit hard, Scott.
We have, yes and no. We have, but we're still growing 100 narrow bodies per year, 20 wide bodies per year. So it's still a lot of growth. And in a way, you know, what we've been able to do at United is, I think, rework our delivery stream to have both Airbus and Boeing and to have consistency. So at 100 airplanes per year, we had this problem of when delays were getting piled up, you know, we'd be going from 100 airplanes to 160. You know, it's really hard to manage an airline like that. And so that getting that 100 narrow body consistency, and I think we'll be there plus or minus 10, it creates a lot of advantages for us. And the truth is, like, it creates a competitive environment that's pretty good.
You're sounding so reasonable about it. Don't you want to sort of get pissed off?
Well, it doesn't help to be pissed off here on stage. There may be other places it helps to be pissed off to make a difference, but focus on doing things that you can make a difference.
Right, I suppose that's true. But Vanessa, the ability to plan just goes out the window, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't go out of the window. I mean, we operate in an industry that is challenged all the time, and I think one of the things that we can reflect on is the agility that we developed in managing through COVID. We're now applying to everything that we do. Being a partner, having good relationships with Airbus and Boeing, being transparent, being upfront.
How can you have good relations with people or with suppliers who are ruining your plans?
I wouldn't say, look, I wouldn't use the word ruining. We actually value flexibility. We value the honesty and upfront. We will absolutely show our displeasure if there are issues, but it's a quid pro quo as well. And I think that, you know, the relationships that airlines have with the manufacturers, they are multi-year, multi-decade.
Yeah.
You have to find a way of being able to have flexibility so that you can get the balance right.
But Tim, Carsten was saying in an interview with me earlier, Carsten said, actually, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, that actually these delays may be saving the industry from its usual problem of boom and bust on capacity. That actually you are not going to get the aircraft, that you would then be able to grow fast and furious and then have the bus coming thereafter. I think I paraphrased you right, Carsten. Thank you, I'll take that, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think Carsten's been around the business as long as I have. And you probably... Anyway, you know, look, that's, you know, it's past think. You know, we've got to move on and think ahead what we need to do. The airlines like Emirates, we have a huge order with both sides of the Atlantic, primarily with Boeing. Contingent on our ability to deliver these plans is the fact that they deliver the aircraft on time and on budget and everything else. And if you do not do that to us, the kind of things that Emirates has had to do, it's had to take of its 777 fleet and its 380 fleet, probably pushing 200 aircraft, have got to go through a major retrofit program. We took that decision when it was clear to us that Boeing is having difficulty in getting the 777-9 out of the door. We couldn't wait, because the longer we left it, our product in cabin was degrading. We were finding it difficult for the supply chain reasons to try and maintain those. So we took the decision to gut the lot and start again inside. And make these aircraft fly longer. That meant we had to extend leases, buy the old aircraft, etc., just to keep us in good shape, to keep the network intact. But that came at a cost of pushing $3 billion. That's our cash going out to resolve this. So it is doing material damage to the way we go about our business. We will not, under any circumstances, slow our business or stop the expansion plans that we have. But we need the manufacturers, the OEMs, and the supply chain to come with us. And I've said on many occasions over the last few days, the demand, notwithstanding Carsten's view about boom and bust, the demand is staring the supply chain in the face. The demand is staring the OEMs and the manufacturers in the face. They've never had it so good in terms of what is coming at them in terms of the order. Their job is to get things done in a manner that we have quality control in everything we do. We get a good set of aircraft out of the shed. We fly them with 99.5 dispatch reliability, and great job done. But so far, we're falling at the first jump in certain areas.
If I can add the engines.
What?
The engines. You know, we're talking about just the OEMs. Okay, from where I stand, it's unusual to be sitting so far after the pandemic to hear that there are supply chain issues. It has, just as Tim said, has hurt any airline that is waiting for delivery is being delayed by a month or two or more, and that costs a lot of money. And it not just costs money, we need to extend the fleet. For us specifically, there's reliability issues on Rolls-Royce engines at Trent 1000, so we would like to see
it's an extraordinary situation.
It is extraordinary, yes.
I'm listening to the reasonableness with which you all describe it so elegantly. But in any other business...
It's bad, but compared to the challenges we deal with, it's... I mean, we dealt with COVID, great financial crisis, like the stuff that we deal with. Supply chain challenges are frustrating and they're bad, but they're not the biggest. If I look at my career and say, what are the top 5 crises? It's supply chain.
Right, so that has now become one of the totems, in a sense, because everything can be referred back to, well, it's pretty bad, but by God, it's not as bad as when we had to shut the airline down.
Yeah, but you learn, a successful airline executive learns to deal with adversity without flipping out. Because if you can't, then you're out of the business. Because you wake up, on March 8th or 9th, and the world is shutting down. You wake up on 9/11, 2001, and the world has changed. Like, we have to be able to deal with adversity.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that the environment that we operate in, not just those kind of big global events, geopolitical events, I come back to sustainability. That is the next biggest challenge that aviation has, which is to find the pathway to sustainable aviation fuel. We heard Willie talk about that earlier. We need to do that together. We're a coalition of airlines. We've got to chart the course, because if I look at everybody in this room, we are the generation that have had the privilege of access to global travel. We want that for our grandchildren, we want that for our children, and we are the leaders that have got this task ahead of us to do. And so, that is, equal to the job that we've got.
If I look at the issue of sustainability, in your individual airlines, you're all attacking it in different ways, but you've all got the same challenge in this net zero 2050. Do you believe the target will be met? A yes or a no to start with?
2050?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you believe it will be met?
Mm-hmm. Ish.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to be hard. And you have to lean in, and you've got to be
creative. What does that mean?
You said yes or no?
No, but yes, I said yes. I said yes, but it's not a piece of cake. It's going to be hard. And that there has to be government, there has to be policy, there has to be coalition of airlines figuring it out.
On this one, I'm a climate change geek for 30 years. I was reading about climate change back when I was in college. I'm more confident than most that it can be solved. And the challenge is we all look at the world, if you're looking at the world with what happens today, it's not solvable. It's expensive, there's not enough supply, on and on and on, the list goes on and on and on. But the parallel I would give you is go back 30 years ago to wind and solar, and everyone said the same thing about wind and solar. Way too expensive, can never compete with coal and nat gas, supply chain, it can never be real. It's cheaper to produce a megawatt of electricity with wind and solar now everywhere in the world than it is through coal or natural gas. And the reason is because there was a lot of investment, a lot of government policy, a lot of carrots that drove it, a lot of investment, and the costs came down dramatically. That's what we have to do. And I've got the data at United. You just plot the wind and solar growth and cost curve, and by the time we get to 2050, we have more than 100%. So if it just follows, well before we get there, if it just followed the same curve, we just have to invest and drive the cost down.
I mean, it's a great opportunity to say that we've actually shown on November 28th last year, we flew the first flight across the Atlantic, 100% sustainable aviation fuel.
Of which you can't get any more.
That is exactly the point. What we're trying to show is that if it is made, all of us will fly it, and now we need the political infrastructure to make sure that the incentives are there, just as Scott said, for investment to flow to create sustainable aviation fuel. Only 0.5% of the fuel made today is sustainable aviation fuel, and 10% is the target for 2030.
But this panel is a good example of the divergence of political will at government level between the United States with its carrot, the EU or UK with its stick, and Australia, which hasn't fully come out one way or the other.
That's right. That's why we've all got to be, in the conversations. We need to be demonstrating the opportunities that exist.
Tim.
And that's why it's ish. Because, I don't think there's anybody in this room who is not minded to fulfill what we're trying to do, the 2050 net zero, whatever it may be in emissions. But it requires so many players to come into the mix and on the same page at the same time doing the right thing. What we're finding is a splintering of the thought leadership in the way we go about sustainability in its application. This is driven by politics, it's driven by socioeconomics, it's driven by a number of other things. All we need to do, and as Scott says, if you do the maths and look at what we did in the early days and where we are now, if 30% of global electricity is produced through sustainable sources at the moment, that's not to say that you can scale that. We are a little bit more complex in our industry simply because the substitute for fossil fuels that drives everything that we do at the moment is not readily available. But we can do an awful lot of things. We talked about sustainable aviation fuel, we talk about feedstocks, we talk about the refining capability, the investment needed to go into that and all of that. But at the same time, around us, outside our industry, there's an awful lot of good going on. I don't think that message is getting out. You look at the way the...
Well, a question that's just come to us from, how do you deal then with the upcoming pressure from climate activists like Extinction Rebellion to stop oil, especially in Europe, where there are more violent processes expected against airports and airlines?
Well, I think we are not messaging as we should do. I mean, there is a really good story to tell. Already there is. And these people either don't want to hear it, won't hear it, and they'll continue to do as they are, irrespective of reasonable and rationale. There's a really good set of metrics out there which is saying that we're moving at pace in the global economy to decarbonize, not just in aviation, but in every other walk of life.
I hate the flight shaming or don't travel message, and here's why. What everyone in this room does is one of the most important industries, one of the most important things in the global community. And I say global community on purpose because what we do is connect people and unite the world. And one of the great casualties that people don't talk about from COVID was the loss of global connectivity, the loss of global perspective. I stood on stage at COP26 and said the world is a more dangerous place when we're not flying. 4 months later, Russia invaded Ukraine. We've seen the tensions with China. That is different when we're not traveling and connecting with each other. We should do it sustainably, but we should not stop traveling and connecting with each other. That makes the world a better place.
Well said.
I guess my only perspective on this, if you ask me about the 2050, I said yes. If you ask me about targets for 2030, I would get more nervous. And that's where the political will of this group...
Right, but to this point that Scott's talking about, the activism and the increasing activism against it.
But that's why we need to tell a different story. Like the point, I agree with Shai, 2030, like this is not linear. You look at the curves, this is not linear. You've got to invest, and then you have an exponential increase in supply. And we shouldn't hide the ball. We shouldn't pretend that it's a short-term solution. It takes investment. We're doing it, and we're starting down that, but it's going to take time. But once we get the investment to drive economic, once we get it to be economic, it'll explode. It has to be economic.
Okay, I accept it has to be economic, but the different ways in which it's being prosecuted means it will be more difficult.
So when you talk about the different ways, here's the difference in carrots versus sticks. When you have the carrot regime is 100 times better because it drives investment, fundamental investment, and then the investor wants to drive the costs down. Their motivation, they're getting a certain amount. If you use sticks, the investor's motivation is go to the airline and negotiate today's price and get a very high price. And then if I drive the cost down, it's all profit margin for me. The sticks drive high-cost production. The carrots drive low-cost production.
Scott,
the carrots are the only thing that will work.
You should try running an airline in Europe.
I know, Europe is a lot tougher. I tell Carson every time I see him, I don't know how you do it in Europe.
With that in mind, are you confident that we'll make the targets? I've come down a bit.
The targets being the 2050 targets. Yeah. Again, the longer we go, there's 25 years for the targets that we've all set ourselves, the net zero. I'm actually more confident in the long run, right. And in the short run, I am not confident.
Turning to infrastructure and the ability to build. Sorry?
Ask somebody that's not in the United States.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Tim, when are you moving to your new airport?
Oh, hopefully within 10 years.
What stage is the airport at?
I think they'll start the major groundwork in about 2 or 3 weeks in early July.
And how long was the planning process?
The planning process for getting this thing in place?
Yes. How many years? Not long?
Well, look, the build is 10 years. The actual execution from October 22, when we decided to really get to grips with it, and the decision that the government took about 2 months ago, 18 months.
How's the third runway doing at Heathrow?
Not as healthy. But you know, yesterday I was speaking to some of my colleagues, and I made a prediction which they didn't like, that most of the people in the room would not be alive to see the third runway in the United Kingdom. They took me literally, and I just want to taper my comments on this one. I didn't mean it literally. But the third runway is off the agenda, and even if it started, the planning process in the UK, for every month that Tim has, we probably have a year. So it would take probably 10 to 15 years of planning, plus 10 to 15 years to build.
Wow.
Unlucky.
You're building a new terminal and a runway.
And a runway in Perth. The most isolated city in the world.
Admittedly, let's give context to this. Your predecessor sort of almost went to war with the airport over it, and it has taken some years to settle the disagreement. Was that a priority, in a sense, for you to really get the Perth hub sorted?
Well, absolutely, and you know, I think if I were to say with regard to disputes that we've had with airports, in the past they have been warranted. And in the past they've been warranted because I think airports and airlines sometimes find themselves on completely different objectives and misaligned. And where things were unlocked with Perth, which I think was a great outcome for us, was one, it is a Western hub for us on you know, Australian mainland. We know that we've been incredibly successful with Perth, London, and our customers love the seamless connectivity that they have in Perth. That coupled with new aircraft that are coming that have got a better range that can enable us from Perth to access more markets, gave us the opportunity to work with Perth to actually say, with growth, with value that an airline can generate, and also with value that an airport can generate, you can do deals, but you've got to come to the table to find the common ground.
Who's picking up the bill?
Well, the airlines are collectively will be paying for the airport over time. Yes, there will be a higher cost for Qantas, but we will also be growing. And that is going to enable us to generate net incremental improvement in earnings, including the cost of the terminal and the runway. So I wouldn't be saying that this is coming at a cost to the consumer. This is coming from the ability to grow.
But the ability, obviously, both in Perth and the new airport in Sydney, shows that you can get major infrastructure projects even in developed markets. But it takes a lot longer and it's a lot more painful.
Well, and you need to find the win-win. Airlines cannot just keep taking cost to the bottom line. We've just spoken about how fine margins are. Airlines have to be working with partners, OEMs, airports, everyone, to find how to unlock value. And that is about through growth, that's about adding value to the customer, but it's also about finding productivity and efficiency.
You see, you've had congestion problems at Newark, and Newark is essential to your entire operation, as I know. What would you like to do at Newark that you can't?
You know, actually, Newark is now running the best it has, essentially in history.
Right, but you have to come back.
But the key is, there's one set of parallel runways. It can handle about 77 operations per hour. When the U.S. government was letting it be scheduled at 87 operations per hour for 10 straight hours last year, like a blue sky day, that's 100 flights that are either getting canceled or delayed. And if there's weather, it was terrible. We're finally scheduling it at the capacity of 77, and it runs like a charm.
Right, but then...
Well, it runs well for Newark.
But then who takes the pain? Who, in terms of... Because you're obviously the dominant carrier there, so when it comes to reducing the flights...
That's the wrong way to think about it. The customers are way better off. There's fewer flights. We're flying bigger airplanes, so the number of seats are the same. There's fewer flights, so you could argue there's a customer impact. But being able to run reliably is so much better for customers. This is not a pain issue. This is better for everyone. You shouldn't try to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag, and that's what we were doing in Newark, and we're not now.
So what are you going to do?
Where? In
Heathrow? I mean, there's nowhere for you to go. You could grow at Gatwick.
Never say never on Gatwick. You know, of course...
how can you say that? You started there.
What do you mean? That's exactly. So, yeah, exactly. 40 years ago to Newark, it was our first flight. We're constrained at Heathrow. We did buy slots and were awarded slots based on remedy at Heathrow. But, you know, growth at Heathrow is very difficult. We're going to operate, the airport will operate about 82 million passengers. They can grow to 100. And at that point, it's at the seams of what the operations, and we're going to have to think of other opportunities to grow for Virgin Atlantic.
Which is what?
We're going to have to think about it.
Right. Let us know when you've thought about it. Yes. Do you listen to this with some amusement?
No, I have a great deal of sympathy with the airline community.
Yeah, but you're landlocked.
No, look. What do you mean landlocked?
I mean the airport, which is why you're moving off to...
yes, we have the great fortune to have a government that is minded and understands the criticality of the aviation sector. So for them to take a decision that it's going to be a $50 billion spend and getting the new field in place, that's not lost on them, the criticality of what goes on. What I see around us in the world today, notwithstanding what Scott was saying about the way Newark is run, this is today. In 10 years' time, look around you, see what are we going to see? We see in Heathrow, zero. We see in Schiphol going south for all the reasons that we heard in this morning's session. Time and time again, you look around, you roll it 10 or 15 years, and where are we? Are we going to be more of the same? So how are we going to deal with the huge compression that is going to be forced on the industry given that, you know, we've got away from the ultra-large aircraft, the 380s, we're going down into smaller twins and a lot more narrow bodies coming along to occupy very, very precious slots in airports that don't have enough capacity even today. We have night jet bans coming and we have curfews being looked at a lot more seriously and possibly even being extended. We have the difficulty of the air traffic control community to step up. We've seen it in the US. We've heard Willie talk about the
He's painting a very pretty picture.
Well, I'm just trying to sort of gradually persuade Airbus to build a new 380.
Would you buy it if they did?
I think we would look very seriously if we could get something off the drawing board. And I think that they, as usual, we are the outliers and they consider us
Scott, would you buy it if they would?
Not if the economics were anything remotely close to the current one.
Scott, 85% of our profit comes from the A380.
Okay.
Well, that's not as much as the fleet's the A380.
No, 99. We have 120, 137 777s, and we have about 85
You brought
380s.
yours back,
Yeah, most of our A's, we've got 2 to come back.
and you're bringing them back?
Yep.
And you're happy with them?
Yeah, our customers love them. Absolutely.
I think the point I was making, Scott, it's not really about the 380, is that if you look around the way the world is looking at aviation, and this is something that people all recognise for the reasons that Scott, and we all know those. But what are they actually doing about facilitating the airport infrastructures, the infrastructures around the aerospace airline industry? We've still got a single European sky not. We've still got inefficiencies in the way we navigate our aircraft for all the reasons that we know. And yet the same governments are very, very vocal about what they need to do with sustainability.
Right.
But when it comes to investment in the airports themselves and trying to attract and doing the right thing, there's a big mismatch.
Geopolitically, the environment is challenging to say the least. And let's take, for example, obviously Russia-Ukraine, no overflight over Russia for European airlines, others can overfly. That creates an unleveled playing field, arguably, with various carriers. You've then got the Middle East, which is challenging to say the least. You've got greater constraints between the US and China, politically, diplomatically, and you've got the US election to throw into all of that. So which of these are you concerned about? Vanessa?
I think I'm concerned about the effects that the geopolitical environment has on demand, where customers want to travel, what they feel comfortable travelling about. I feel concerned about the effects it has on fuel price. Because we know the impact that actually has on earnings. I think that they would be the 2 ones that I'd be most concerned about.
And for me, I think it's about globalization versus the retrenchment towards a more isolationist environment. There are 1.4 billion people voting this year. It's not just the US, it's India, it's Mexico, it's the United Kingdom. There are many, many places which are of significance. This industry is built on connecting the global world. We need a stable world, and I'm hoping that the elections will yield better outcomes than we currently see them.
What? Sorry, have you been drinking?
No, actually, no.
You're hoping, but you're not expecting.
We don't run the company or the airline or this industry based on hope. But it's not entirely clear to me that everything is going in the wrong way. There could be some good outcomes coming from this. And I think overall, we've seen a very, very difficult position that should, in the long run, or even in the medium term, improve itself to back into a more inclusive environment.
But the fascinating part is when you drill down to the nitty-gritty of your routes and your networks and those. You were telling me, Scott, about earlier, the ability to fly from West Coast to here requires overflight of Russia, at least to make it economically viable for yourselves. Therefore, it's not. These are real problems that hit you every day as a result of geopolitical issues.
Yeah, geopolitics is a risk for us. But on the U.S. election, here's what I would say.
He went straight for it.
Well, you asked, so and I thought about it while everyone else was talking. So it's going to be frustrating and entertaining at the same time. But also, as an American, I would say I have, and I think we should all have great confidence in the institutions, the bedrock of the U.S. And we have a lot of noise, and there's lots of histrionics, but those are strong. And the country, by and large, wants to do the right thing, believes in doing the right thing, believes in being a global player. We're not perfect, and I know we make people angry at times with things that we do, but I have great confidence. We'll have some drama along the way, but great confidence that we'll be here and attempt to be a genuine part of the global community.
This time next year?
Forever.
Right. Let's have a question from the audience. Anyone got a question? You have one. Anybody here? Look at that. Room full of highly educated, intelligent, articulate people. And there isn't one question. Gosh, they're all frightened. You've scared them.
You're hard to compete with, Richard.
Sorry, are you scratching yourself, or have you got a question?
There we go.
Yes.
Hi, Charlotte Ryan from Bloomberg. I'll take the opportunity
Please.
if no one else wants to ask a question. Yeah, just kind of taking an overview of what we've heard so far. You know, bit of a mixed picture. We've got geopolitical risks, but we've also got people enjoying flying again, and obviously we're all enjoying being here. How would you describe your outlook at the moment, and what's that going to mean for ticket prices as we go into that key summer season?
Right. Well,
that's for anyone who'll take it.
Yes. Well, there's a bit of history here about talking about those areas, which means that if the General Counsel of IATA will launch themselves at me, so I'll paraphrase, if I may, the outlook for how you see it for the next months.
Look, a UK home carrier, I would say record demand from the US.
Yeah.
Record demand in what we call premium and upper class, so the more affluent passengers. But in the UK specifically, in the economy, we're seeing a bit of less robust demand, but a strong summer overall.
Right, but it'd be far more serious if you were seeing a bit less robust demand at the front.
Absolutely.
You'd be far more worried about that.
Yes, but which tells us that there is a bifurcation a bit in the prospects for individuals.
Vanessa?
We're optimistic. We're actually seeing really good demand domestically, both the premium, corporate, and particularly the low fares leisure segment for Jetstar and also with Qantas International. We are seeing good outbound demand, albeit we're seeing yields moderating with capacity coming back, but Jetstar as well, outbound leisure is really going strong.
Steady as she goes.
Steady?
Yeah, demand has been good. It's staying good, not getting stronger or weaker. Steady as she goes.
I think that's the same for all of us. We have strong demand in just about all the markets where we serve, going forward into the summer and into the winter. Whether or not that'll affect the pricing price points is anybody's guess. I would suggest probably not. We are in a kind of equilibrium in the price points that the industry is at. I'm not going to say any more than that because they'll put me in jail. But and you. So I guess at the moment there is a high degree of optimism in our business. People are really getting to grips with the past of COVID, getting on with their lives going forward. I think their products have changed, their networks have changed, the fleet is slowly changing. We're getting better at what we do. And I think the consumer base is responding to that. And the strength that we see in the multiplicity of segments that has grown since COVID. And these aren't the traditional segments. We talk about the corporate, the business class cabins. These are all misnomers. Our premium cabins are populated by many, many other individuals who are paying the price that the corporates used to pay and some, and traveling more often will get that. I mean, this is something that we've experienced in quite a uniform manner across our network in all our routes. So I think if I share the view, if everybody is saying basically the same thing, the industry is in good shape, and it looks as though...
Isn't that a good thing?
Of course it's a good thing.
And but you know, being the journalist, I turn around and say, how long can it last?
Yeah, but you see-
How long before it screws up?
We're never going to be like Gordon Brown, so there'll be no boom or bust anymore. What you're saying is that I believe that the industry has sorted itself out in a very, very professional manner, and it's got the resources and all the factors of production in place to improve what it does and be able to deal with the kind of problems we've had in the past. And don't forget, as to Scott's point, you know, we in this industry have faced huge disruptions in the global economy, geopolitical, socio-economic. It would be 9/11 with the crash of 2008-9. We've all come out of it smelling of roses. We've always managed to get the business up and running very quickly, surprised ourselves at our ability to do that. And I see no reason why that given the current troubled planet that we're on, why we can't continue to do our business as well as we've always done. And you know, we talk about multiple elections across the planet today. People are getting very political wary now. They just want to get on a plane and go on holiday and see a few people, have a good time in our 380s.
Right.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Final question to each of you. Final question. What do you think is your best quality as CEO? Don't look at me like that.
I'm going to go last this time.
I'm happy to go.
Guess gone. Go for it. Your best quality as CEO.
I'm a good listener, and I convert that listening into action.
We'll take that. Scott.
I'm going to say a supportive wife. Kathleen is right here.
Oh, Shai.
That's gone. That's gone for the.
And I say that actually because it actually really does to me. I think of the people of United as my family, and I think most of them think of me the same way. That's a powerful thing.
A listener, a family, and Sir Tim.
I like to think that I, along with the guys that work with me, we are totally focused on the job in hand. Your job as...
No. I asked what's your
I'm
quality.
just going to say, and as part of that, you have to lead through all of that, keeping everybody on message, keeping them focused, and you must demonstrate that you can do that and take the team with you. You can't do it without the team, you
But
can't
what's
do
the
it on your
quality
own.
that is?
What is the quality? Single-mindedness?
Bloody-mindedness?
No. There's a bit of that, but you know, you've got to get the job done. And the job requires, certainly with the size of Emirates, when you've got, you know, in the organisation, 70,000 people, 270 aircraft flying, trying to get the whole lot operated in, as we all know, Scott does it with United, Delta does it, you know. We're good at what we're doing, so the leaders have got to lead them through that and demonstrate that they have the capability of doing that. And when that happens, the workforce will come with you.
Right.
So it's all about strength of personality, character to get the job done.
And I think I kind of live the brand. We're a challenger brand, and I'm a challenger. So,
What? What does that mean?
you know, what's wrong today?
I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
A challenger brand, right? We're the underdog. The underdog is a challenger
You've
brand.
spent the last how many years being the underdog?
40.
At some point you must get on top.
I don't think so. You know, no, we're going to be the challenger. And in terms of the quality itself, I'm all in.
The all-in underdog.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, our panel. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Shai, good to see you. Huh?
Thanks, sir.
After all this time.
Thank you.